Welcome to the Due Diligence Podcast, where we explore how leaders make and execute their biggest decisions, from transactions to founding organizations to career pivots and beyond. This podcast is produced by Sleeping Giant Capital. We connect executive talent and capital to invest in West Michigan businesses. To learn more, visit us at sleepinggiantcapital.com or stop by our office in downtown Kalamazoo.
Hi, I'm Justin Murray, and I'm an executive in residence at Sleeping Giant Capital. Thanks for joining us for today's episode. My co-host Doug Lepisto and I speak with Aaron Zeigler and Dan Schied of Zeigler Automotive Group. We will explore Zeigler's growth through acquisition, as well as their investment in people and process. We hope you enjoy our conversation. So you are on the Due Diligence Podcast, and so we actually like to kick off the podcast with doing our diligence on the two of you, and so we try to find something in your bio that maybe is not published on the website. And so you guys work together, 15 plus years?
About 20 now.
Yeah, almost 20 years. So we're going to do our facts, and then maybe you guys do one for one another, because maybe there's something we missed. But Dan, we think that you may have a daughter that could beat all of us in golf. Is that true?
She plays all right. So yeah, I got a daughter. She's a senior in high school, and she grew up out of KCC at the club, and we're being recorded here, but I'm okay saying that she doesn't have an athletic bone in her body. She had to kind of learn the drive and the competitiveness, but golf kind of became our connection point. So yeah, she plays. I think she's an 8 index. She's going to play at a little small D3 school next year.
Oh, nice.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's great.
How many rounds do you guys get in together?
I bet you I played twice a week with her. 9 holes, like the evening and Saturday or Sunday or something like that. So I'll actually miss it because it's one of those that's a good, dad-daughter time. And then she plays with my buddies out there too, which is kind of cool.
And you're I've seen you out. You're a walker.
Yeah, I walk.
You love walking.
I prefer, to me, walking and golf is kind of how it works. So I usually walk. Yeah. Usually, sometimes I have a caddy, sometimes not. But yeah.
I like it. And then Aaron, we hear you are a competitive jet skier.
In a previous life, I raced jet skis growing up and raced on the Pro Tour for about 6 years.
6 years on the Pro Tour?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
It's a lot like motocross racing. You race all over the world, really. Race the world championships every year out in Lake Havasu. But it was a lot of fun. It was a good way to see the world. I learned a lot from racing jet skis that transpired over into to business, going and putting together sponsorships. And it takes money to win and to go fast, and takes a lot of dedication and time to be able to be successful and put together a team.
Yeah.
Did the passion for jet skiing kind of lead to the investment you made in the power sports business?
Yeah, no question about it. Not only was I into jet skis growing up, but I've always been into snowmobiling and ATVs and whatnot. And I'd always been a customer at power sports dealerships, and I always had lousy experiences. And I'm like, I think I could do it better than what the industry's doing it. So I decided to try to prove that with our team, that we could do it better than the other guys. And so it was a passion that also ultimately led into a business.
Nice. That's great. So if we take a quick step back, Zeigler Auto Group, we were based in Kalamazoo, so we know you as a Kalamazoo-based company, but you're obviously much, much larger than that. Do you want to just give a quick detail on?
Well, and by the way, I mean, you the two guys that we needed to get on the podcast, everybody said, because you guys are doing so many interesting deals, and a lot of them, and growing really quickly, and you guys have a real expertise. So I think this is a phenomenal opportunity for people to learn about your business and then the tricks of the trade. So
yeah, so our business started in 1975. My dad was self-made. He started the company in Lowell, Michigan, and then moved to Kalamazoo in 1979. So we've been based out of here since 1979. And then I started working in the business in college and really fell in love with selling cars and the customers. And after college, kind of worked my way up through and became president of the company when I was 28, and took over, 21, 22 years ago. And then Dan came in right after me. And at the time, I think we had 4 or 5 dealerships. And we kind of looked at the industry and realized that we either needed to sell out or we needed to grow. That was the way the industry was going. There's going to be a lot of consolidation going forward. And as technology came about, as the internet became a lot more prevalent, you had to have a big presence out there, and you had to have a national presence. And that's where we decided, we got together and said, it'd be a lot of fun to be able to grow this thing and build a team to be able to do that. And we kind of put our heads down, and there was no grand plan of how many locations we wanted or anything like that, but just kind of put our heads down and kind of started building what we thought we needed internally to grow. So the first 6 or 7 years, we didn't do a lot of growth. We built the structure internally. We started building training. We started recruiting aggressively to get the right people that we needed to be able to help us grow. And we started building structure in the organization. And then once we had that, we kind of caught a break. 2008, the recession hit. And a good time to buy is when nobody else wants to buy. And the world was kind of falling to pieces in 2008. And all of a sudden we looked at this and said, hey, this is a great time to buy. Prices are down. And we didn't have any knowledge that anybody else didn't have, other than I looked at every recession in the history of the world, and they never last any more than 18 months. And I said, if it lasts more than that, we'll go down in flames with everybody else. But I don't think it's going to last that long. So we started buying in the recession, and we hit a couple of home runs during the recession and bought some stuff kind of on the cheap that performed really well coming out of the recession. And that's what really kind of made our organization.
Dan, what was it like being CFO of the company, kind of acquiring during that time? And then what's it like being CFO of a high growth company?
Yeah, Terrence's point, it's been quite a transition, because you go from, it was 5, like Aaron said, 5 dealerships when I joined these guys in 2003, doing $190 million in sales to $2.4 billion today. So a little bit about my background. So I CPA, worked for Deloitte for a couple of years, punched my ticket, got out of there. But I really kind of cut my teeth doing M&A with Steelcase, a big company up in Grand Rapids. Mm-hmm. So learned how to do a deal, learned it from some guys that are really smart there. And frankly, also working on the legal side. We had in-house counsel. So I remember when Aaron called me up, Harold and Aaron called me up in 2003 and talked about kind of where they wanted to go. My question was, hey, what's the growth plan? And like Aaron said, the plan is we want to grow, period, through acquisition, organically, but also through acquisition. I said, all right, well, I've got that experience now, having done that at a big company. And that's something we can go do. So like Aaron said, the first 5 or 6 years, we did a couple of deals to kind of just, add some locations that were synergistic to what we're doing. And then in 2008, it was go time. 2008, 2009, it was go time. And it was a lot of work back then, because frankly, we were a lot smaller. We didn't have a big, a team of, diligence guys and things like that. And so it was, I look back and there was a lot of hours, a lot of time, but every deal is a little different. No deal they're not all the same. So you get into them and it's usually kind of what the seller's doing, or it's got some, hair on it or whatever, but you just work your way through it. And like Aaron and I say, I think the best thing we're good at is just figuring stuff out. We're not the smartest guys in the world. I tell you, we're good, but we're not, there's plenty of MBAs from Harvard and McKinsey and wherever else that, do this stuff every single day. But I think I'd put us up against anybody when it comes to just figuring it out. So going back to your question, Justin, the deals back then, they were a lot of work. They were a grind. I mean, the all-nighters, things like that. Today, when we grow, it's a little bit, called a little bit more organized. We have a acquisition team when an opportunity comes up. We do a certain level of diligence, to make sure we know what we're looking at, but it's a little more structured today just because of our size and our resources.
What were the things you had to get organized around?
When you don't have a team to do diligence and you're going in, you're trying to peel apart a bunch of financials and figure out who the people are involved in the management, it's, you're on the phone constantly and you're just trying to figure out how to use limited resources to, get as much information as you can.
Here's maybe another way to put this. When we were buying stores back in 2008, the two of us would walk in and meet with the employees. Now we walk in with, we bought 4 stores in Wisconsin last year. We walked in with 30 people. Because we have people that now we have the structure that can do everything and answer all their questions. So the professionalism has gone up dramatically over the last 15 years.
Yeah, we come in with a presentation now, and it's about getting the buy-in. And frankly, even how we manage the seller through the process is a little more structured.
Go into more details on that, on how you manage the seller. I know that's a challenge sometimes for. I know most of the deals that you're doing, are they kind of, let's call them quote unquote off market, right? So it's a relationship, somebody, or is it kind of a listing that a broker's, how are most of those deals happening? And then how do you manage the seller?
Really kind of a combination of both. We find deals a lot of different ways. So the manufacturers all have first right of refusal. So a lot of times the dealers will go to the manufacturers now and say, hey, who would you recommend that we sell to that will get approved? So we've gotten a lot of deals through the manufacturers. We've got a great relationship with the manufacturers. If you perform, manufacturers want you to do more. And then we get some looks at brokers, and we have bought some stores with brokers, but we haven't done a lot with brokers. A lot of it's just us going out cultivating relationships. And a lot of it's on our reputation too. The one thing that we always tell somebody is, if we shake your hand and we agree on something, it's going to go down on paper exactly that way. And it's not always that way in our industry. So I think reputation gets us a lot of deals that, we do what we say we're going to do, and the deals go down really, really smooth.
Yeah, 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have deals coming in every single day because we weren't that size. So we most of those deals, we identified something that we wanted to go after, develop a relationship with the seller or some contact there, maybe through the manufacturer, maybe not. And then eventually you put a deal together. Today, we get calls nonstop because, sellers and more particularly brokers know that we're out buying. And so we get 90% of the stuff that comes at us just doesn't quite make sense. It's off somewhere that doesn't, make sense in our footprint or whatever. But, and then what we do is we educate the brokers, say, hey, here's what our strategy is for growth. Make sure you're calling us when it comes up. So today it's a little more structured when you think of call it the deal flow.
And then so we looked at a deal just a couple months ago that was a distributor of an OEM product. We met with that OEM. They seem to have tremendous power over the distributor we were looking at. So as you look to diversify and think through new brands, what's the reaction from the Fords and GMs and Chryslers of the world as you diversify? What's that conversation like? Is it supportive, combative? Does it depend? And how often do you maybe have those conversations?
So if you went back 25 years ago, the manufacturers didn't want dealers to own multiple dealerships because they were afraid exactly what you're talking about, that the dealers would become too powerful. Is what they realized is that's not a great strategy, because as dealers became more successful and on more locations, they became more professional. They had better technology, they had better people, they had better processes. It was a better experience for the customers. So now the manufacturers have completely changed, and they want the bigger groups to be able to buy these dealerships. And that's why they have first right of refusal on these, and they kind of feed them to all the bigger organizations now. So you can't just come in from outside the industry. Even if you have the money to buy something, the manufacturer won't approve you unless you have a proven track record to be able to run that business. So not only do you have to have the money to be able to buy the business, but you have to have a proven track record of somebody that's going to run the business, and that person has to be approved in advance. So the manufacturers now realize that all of the big groups own multiple stores, multiple franchises, so it's irrelevant to them. They're really looking at the performance, and we have to turn in when we're going through the approval process. We have to show them our performance of every one of our stores. We have to justify it. We have to justify our customer satisfaction numbers. We have to justify our profitability, our market share, and all of those numbers need to meet the requirements, or they won't approve going forward.
When I'd love to drill into you bought 15 companies early on, all losing money.
Yes.
So there's a lot of businesses that lose money, and some you want to buy and some you don't. How did you guys think through those early days of what makes something fit within your strategy and have a point of view on growth?
So usually the reason why they're losing money in our business is because they have the wrong people and the wrong culture. As long as they have the right franchise and the right location, if we have those two things, I can't change those things going forward, but I can change the people and I can change the culture. And what we're doing is we're repeating past behaviors of what's worked. And we're constantly evolving as the market evolves to stay relevant out there. And we're constantly learning from each other. And, something might work really well at one dealership and we roll it out to all the dealerships. So what happens is you go in, you buy something that's losing money, you look at why it's not performing, you look at the people. Sometimes they just have bad leadership, and we put in the right leadership and the right processes, but they have good workers there, and all of a sudden the thing will flourish. Other times they just have bad people and bad culture, and you gotta change out everybody to be able to make it work. But more times than not, it's really just putting in the right leadership, the right processes. Sometimes it's investing. We're a big believer in investing in the right facilities, having really nice facilities. We've been nonstop under construction because that's part of our brand and part of what we stand for. And it's part of building everything that we do, we look at long term. And that's a big advantage of being a private company, is every decision that we make is for the long haul. We don't have to try to look good in the short run for our stock price or anything like that.
Yeah, to play off that too, what Aaron said, and you asked the question about the those first 15 deals, and Justin asked earlier, the change between buying those first 15 or 10, 12 years ago and what we do today. That's what made it so hard when you're buying the 15 deals and you didn't have the resources. We were a lot smaller back then, because you're trying to figure out, where's this thing broken? And it's usually the leadership. In fact, in those deals, I don't think we ever went into one of those deals without bringing our own leader in. I can't recall the deal where we didn't bring in the leader. Today, a dealership that's making money and doing well, you spend a lot of time interviewing the leader, because you want to figure out, is this why it's working or not working? And then you try to figure out, where can we add value? And usually it has to do with, some operational, thing that we're doing that, is going to add value to the transaction.
So how do you find that out? We're on the due diligence podcast. So you're always in, especially on imagining these more distressed companies, and you don't have a lot of resources. So you don't have a lot of time. You're doing this, for the first couple of deals, it's your first time, kind of going through some of these processes. You have something that's broken. How do you actually figure out and diagnose the people? Do you guys have a playbook? Do you bring in a survey or an audit, or how do you figure this out?
We typically haven't brought others in to do the diligence for us.
Mm-hmm.
I say I don't think we ever have, So in our industry, I will say the data is amazing, the amount of data that's out there. In fact, I always told Aaron, where I came from in the furniture industry, the data felt like it was made up. You never had a lot of data. In our industry, dealerships across the board have financial statements that are all somewhat similar. So you kind of know what you're looking at. You don't have to kind of interpret the financial statements. And then the amount of reporting, public reporting, because auto sales are all public reported through the Department of Transportation. And so you can pull public data to figure out, where are the sales and the cross sales and things like that. But then you can identify where they're missing in the financials. And then we take that, and now we can go ask the questions to the people and figure out, what's going wrong in the dealership.
So on the numbers side of things, we'll say we're buying a BMW store, we'll compare it to our BMW stores that we currently have. We'll match them up side by side on a spreadsheet so we can look and see where the opportunities are at. On the people side of things, a lot of times, the first thing we do is I go in and just start interviewing people one by one and ask them what changes need to be made. What are we missing here? And a lot of times the employees have the answers, so nobody's ever asked them. And you get just a treasure trove of information by asking the current employees that are there of what they see, what they would change. We ask a lot of open-ended questions of what they'd like to see different. We always ask them what they think they're doing well too, so that we don't change something that is going well. But it's amazing when, we'll have a team of people come in and we'll meet with almost every employee there, and then we'll compare notes at the end of the day and how similar a lot of the answers are for the employees. And it almost kind of, the current employees help create a plan going forward that the current owner could have had. He just never asked those questions to him.
I was just going to say, so now building on that and talking more about the people, because so much of this, especially as you're buying higher performing businesses, you got to do something, right? Find the growth, find the people changes, the operational changes to make sure your investment is a good one. So we talked before we came in here, but what are some of the things that you've invested in to make sure you have a people process and you have a leadership process to kind of make sure that you're elevating the businesses you buy?
I think the one thing that really sets us apart from everybody else is our development program. We've got a really extensive development program. We call it Zeigler University. And it starts day one. So we go in, we buy a new business. Every employee, we call it Keys to Success, but it's a new hire orientation program. Explains to them about our history, about our culture, about how we do things. And then we've got a portal. Zeigler University's got a website that they can log on to, and it's got just a treasure trove of information. We've got 1,500 development videos on there. And we found out that the videos need to be short, like 5 to 7 minutes. And for example, if you're on a sales track, all of our salespeople watch 3 videos a day. That's a requirement. So at least they're getting trained every single day. And then we do live classes and we bring in speakers. And then ultimately we have something called our performance group. And Dan and I run it. And it's our top 10 people that we're developing to run future businesses that aren't currently running businesses for us. So we quite often, when we're buying something and the owner's retiring, we always have the person that's going to go run that business before we have the business. And we've had conversations with those people like, hey, do you want to move? Do you not want to move? There's no wrong answer to that. But then we know if we're looking at somebody or if we're looking at a business, who we're going to put into that business moving forward.
How big's that group roughly?
So we have 10 people in there.
Okay.
At any one time on average. So, and then people will graduate out of there. We've had a lot of people graduate out of there that are running businesses, and we keep bringing new people into the group. So it's constantly fluid. There's no like start and stop time for somebody going through there.
And how did you identify that as we all talk about talent. It's great, right? Everybody needs talent, but I mean, you guys really put process behind it and investment behind it. Was that just, you did a lot of deals and found, hey, the key to this is having a great leader? I mean, how did this evolve into something that's so well defined now?
Well, the difference between a successful business and an unsuccessful business ultimately is the leadership and the people that are running the business. And if you have the right leader, everything else kind of seems to fall into place. Ultimately, if you look at it from the bottom up, the foundation is a culture. You've got to have the right culture. And we love sports. We're very competitive. I can't teach people to be competitive. So we have to hire people.
So true, by the way.
Yeah, we have to hire people that are competitive, right? Like, I can't teach you to want it, but we're very driven by numbers. We're very driven to sell a lot of product and to have good customer satisfaction and stuff like that. I just can't teach people to want that. You either got it or you don't. So once we have those key characteristics that we hire towards, we can teach them the business. We can teach them to sell cars. We can teach them the leadership. And I always tell everybody, you don't have to have a title to be a leader. Everybody in the company can be a leader. And we're trying to train an entire generation of new leaders and new entrepreneurs in our company. And that's what really gets the two of us excited. We don't do this for money. We don't do it for our own egos or anything else. We do it because it's really fun to see people come up and take on bigger things in the organization and take on bigger roles than they ever dreamed that they could.
And do you?
I was gonna say, and I agree with to Aaron's point. That is the fun side of it. But you also look when we were a quarter or a tenth of our size, even, right? So we had five, six dealerships. Succession planning isn't that difficult, right? Like a manager leaves or somebody retires, you kind of know where the guy is. When you have 35, like succession planning is going on nonstop. Because at any given point in time, you've got somebody that's, reaching an age or something's changing, in their life. We're like, we got to have the next individual coming up. And so almost by virtue of a necessity, we developed the development program, and it's kind of grown into what it is today.
And we teach people too, if you want to move up, you have to have trained your replacement to be able to take your position when you move up. So it's really easy for us to move somebody up in the company when somebody else is ready to go to take their position. That's a really smooth transition. For us. And that's how you've really done your job.
Wait, so I'm curious about the translation from training program. I'm watching videos. I go to a place, I get trained, and how you take that and bring it back into the day-to-day. How do you make that linkage?
So everything we do is real world. It's real world situations the people are going through. But once they go and they get the information and they're developing and they're learning, then we can track their performance. Okay, so everything we do is trackable. Everything is numbers, whether it be based on sales or service or gross or whatever. Everything we do is trackable. And we track everything.
Yeah, customer service. Aaron mentioned, you asked the question earlier, Justin, about when we do an acquisition, how do we add value, right? And so Aaron talked about the people side of it. I would add to that then call it the process, right? People process. Everybody talks about that. So we let our guys, our managers, our general managers run fairly autonomous, right? So they make their decisions. They got to take care of the customer and take care of the employees. But there's a handful of things that we do organizationally that are across the board. So when we buy a dealership, we're coming in with our dealer management system. It's the same system. I don't care what you were on before, it's ours. Our customer relationship management system, you're using ours, you're not using another one. Our inventory management system. So there's a handful of systems that we put in because we know it's worked for us. And then to Aaron's point, we measure everything. We must have a dozen different reports that are all tracking somebody's performance or everybody's performance. And we use that. And what happens is, the acquisitions that we do when we integrate them in, they get the benefit of what we've done that's worked. And so when you tie that people and the process together, that's where the results come.
When you so you've acquired a lot of businesses and along with that a lot of people. So what are some of the when a person comes into Zeigler versus what they were doing before? What are maybe some of the funny stories or the lines that stick with you from employees that say like, wow, we're doing things right? Like what do you hear from people that say, wow, now I'm getting X, I wasn't getting that before? What are some things you hear?
So we come from a smaller town and we go to Chicago and I remember thinking, okay, this is the major leagues. How do we stack up in Chicago? Like can we make it here? Like there's some
the boys from Kalamazoo coming
there's like
into
some
Chicago.
big time guys in Chicago, some big time names. And what we found out in Chicago is that there was so much business that the dealers didn't treat their employees very good and they didn't treat their customers very good. So the dealers in Kalamazoo were actually a lot stronger than what they were in Chicago. So business was a lot easier. But we would go and I remember having a conversation with one of our general managers early on, and he would say like, previous dealer, if a customer came back the next day and they had a scratch on their car, he'd tell them just to beat it. Like he's not going to fix it. And I'm like, you got to fix it. Like we just do whatever a customer wants to make him happy, like within reason, we're going to do. And he's like, well, what if it wasn't there when it left? I'm like, you still fix it because the customer wants you to do that. Like it's just a long-term relationship. And he's like, well, what if the customer's lying to you? I'm like, you still fix it, right? Like you just make a customer happy because if you do, they're going to come back. If you get into an argument with them, you win the battle, you lose the war, and they're not going to come back. And the guy's like, wow, really? So like, we're just going to make customers happy? I'm like, yeah, it's like, I know it sounds crazy in Chicago, but that's what we're going to do. And people were like blown away because like they were used to fighting with their customers in Chicago. It's just this weird cultural thing over there. So we went in, we're like, be nice to your employees, make sure they're happy, create a great culture, and then do the same thing with your customers. And it's just a much funner work environment, and your business will flourish with doing that.
So I think we'll wrap up in a little bit to kind of talk about what next, but dive back into figuring stuff out, how that got you to where you are today. You're doing a lot of new things for the first time, and now you've built an incredible business. What's the lesson on that?
Well, so here was a huge change in our industry. When COVID hit, we got shut down by our governor. We couldn't sell cars. Like you don't have a plan for that, right? So I remember Dan and I got together, and all of a sudden we can't sell, and we still have all these expenses. So your employees are freaking out, right? How am I going to make my mortgage payment? Like, do I have a job and stuff like that? So we were doing a video a month to our employees, and we started doing 2 videos a day because things were moving so fast. We needed to communicate with our employees. We needed to settle them down. First thing we did is we came out and guaranteed everybody's pay. Said, look, we're going to be fine. We're going to pay everybody. You're going to get paid. Don't worry about it. We wanted our employees to not have this fear. Then we had to figure out our business going forward. So we started talking to a lot of people in the industry, and we were talking to this guy that was an economist, and this was kind of an aha moment. And I said, where do you think business is going to be at 3 months from now? And he goes, it's going to go down. And I go, no, there's going to be all this pent-up demand. Every car we're not selling now, we'll sell in 3 months. And he goes, the demand will be there, but you won't be able to have the inventory. He goes, I'm looking at national inventory levels, and it's going to take these manufacturers a while to gear up. So all of a sudden, as we're shut down and we're not selling cars, we get all of our guys together and say, start buying every new car you can from every other dealer out there. Well, dealers were scared at the time, so they started selling us inventory. So we bought thousands of new cars. And then when all of a sudden things opened back up, all of a sudden people realized they couldn't get cars. We had cars, so it really helped us out.
We actually were recruiting during that time too.
Yeah,
we're hiring people that are not working because they're shut down.
Does that go back to your 08, 09?
Correct. Yeah, we learned.
Hey, listen, everyone is saying
do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. Like literally. Yeah. And then the second thing that happened, we're like, okay, if people can't get new cars, used cars are going to be really valuable. So we told our guys, at the time we had like 2,500 used cars in stock. I said, go buy every used car you can. Over the course of the next year, used cars for the first time ever started appreciating. So they started going up in value. And we built our inventory from like 2,500 used cars up to 6,500 used cars. And people are like, man, dealers don't have any cars. How do you guys have cars? I'm like, because we've been all over, not only our country, but we were all over Canada looking to buy cars. Like everywhere we could buy cars, we were buying cars. And Historically, because cars depreciate, we have to get rid of them every 60 days because otherwise they depreciate too much. I told our guys, I go, forget everything you know about the used car business, because now we don't want to wholesale anything. We want to keep them because they're going to keep going up in value, and they went up about 50%. So we did very, very well in being able to provide cars for our customers when nobody else had cars. All of a sudden, we had a ton of inventory. Now it's kind of flipped the other way, where the market hit a high point earlier this year. We kind of realized that, and we felt like used cars were going to start to depreciate again. So now we're starting to bring our inventories down pretty aggressively and turning them really fast, because used cars are depreciating right now about 3 to 4 times what they were historically. They're still elevated from where they are, so they've still got a ways to go. But you have to look at what the market's doing, and you have to be able to be nimble and shift really quickly and not just look at what's happened in the past. You got to look at what you think is going to happen going forward. So I'm always living 3 to 6 months in the future of where I think it's going to go at. And we're making business decisions based on where we think the future is going to be.
So how are you doing that? I guess that's as a leader, right? You need to have the pulse. As a leader of the company, you have to have your pulse on the market. So are you two getting together a lot? Are you
go back to the reporting?
Go back to the
data,
economist. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, we talk to not only each other. We're reading the news. We're talking to other people in the industry. We're talking to economists, stuff like that. But also a lot of it's common sense. So like right now, interest rates are going up, and you're seeing these Fortune 500 companies come out and go, hey, I think there might be a recession going forward. Well, of course there's going to be a recession going forward. Like interest rates can't go up 6% and not have a recession, right? The only way to get rid of inflation is to throw us into a recession. So we're looking back at 2008 and going, how did we manage during the recession then? Little different now because unemployment's really low, but unemployment's going to come up a little bit. The difference now between 2008 is credit markets were closed then, they're open now. So it's been a really bad time this year to buy dealerships because the prices have been elevated and high. So we've looked at some stuff, made some offers. We haven't gotten anything bought, but those owners also didn't sell to anybody else because there's a gap right now on what sellers and buyers want. We believe that as there's these headwinds coming to the industry, it'll settle prices down, and halfway through next year, it'll be a time to start buying again when other people kind of get scared. Any deal that went down this year was way overvalued.
Yeah, like I said, inflation's affected everything, price of dealerships included. So you just don't buy.
What I want to maybe 2 questions before we go on to the kind of wrap up, because I got to ask is. What's your relationship like? How have you guys have done how many deals together? You've been together how long?
40 some deals.
You guys have done 40 deals together. You started off and Aaron convinced you to join him. It sounds like.
Yeah, similar age, obviously, similar, different background, right? But similar age, but similar desire to grow. And, he likes sports, I like sports. Our families get together. You got, it's like Aaron always says, you've heard the saying, you don't have to love who you work with. I totally disagree, because you're going to be with somebody more than you are with your spouse. So you have to get along. You have to be able to support each other. And so it's just a great relationship inside and out of work.
Yeah, we've been together for 20 years, and I don't think there's ever been a crossword, because we're both just trying to figure out, and we have the same goals and desires. So we're just trying to figure things out. And now it doesn't mean that, we'll go behind closed doors and we'll beat a subject up and we might be on opposite sides. But when we come out of closed doors, we're aligned, the two of us. We'll make a decision and go, this is what we're going to do. And then we fully support it. But I think there's no ego between the two of us. We're not looking for who gets credit for something or anything like that. It's just we have fun doing what we're doing. We have fun working together. We have fun growing the business, and we have fun figuring things out. And when things are going really well, we almost kind of get bored. And we're looking for something.
We have 15 or 20 individuals that are sort of part of our executive leadership team. You could sit them in the room and they say the same thing, because that culture, going back to that culture comment, it's important that we all, in the end of the day, support each other and work together, because you got to enjoy the people you work with. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Do you guys have one story? So we've heard a lot of the really well-placed strategic moves. Do you have one that you guys laugh about that you wish you had back?
Had back?
Maybe the deal, we should have done that deal, or man, we went and
some of the best deals are the ones you don't do, right? Isn't that true saying? Yeah,
we really don't have any regrets on anything that we've ever missed on. I think we've had a lot of things go our way, and I think in business you got to have a little bit of luck too, and we've certainly had some luck on our side, whether it be timing or things going your way or connections that you've made out there. So we've certainly been blessed with good luck as well. And I said, Dan and I have always gotten along great. There's I can't remember one time I've ever gotten mad at him or he's gotten mad at me.
You guys have never had an argument.
I don't ever remember raising our voice.
Yeah,
I literally can't remember.
Have we had a difference of opinion at times? Yeah, but
that's healthy.
Are you guys similar? I mean, because you're doing a lot of things, and are you the yin and yang? How are you guys different from one another?
We're similar on sports,
similar on winning.
But I think in business, we bring something very different to the table. So I think what I'm really bad at, Dan's really good at.
What does that look like?
I'm not a detail person. I'm not the guy that's going to go and, go through all the spreadsheets and stuff. He's amazing at that stuff. He's amazing at the diligence on bringing me information. Like when we're looking at buying a business, I'm the one that's going to negotiate it. He'll give me a number and I won't go above that number because I trust him. Like, I don't even try to hey, let's raise that number. He gives me the number and I just go with it.
And he says that though. One thing is
so
he's going to come up with his own number. We're always pretty close.
Yeah.
I kind of joke if I was running the place, we'd still have 5 dealerships and we'd know exactly where all of our ROIs. If he didn't have me, we'd probably have 30 dealerships and be looking for dimes under the couch or something. You got to have, you got to have the visionary side of it and his vision to grow. He understands the industry like I've never seen before. And I think some of my experiences I had in the past doing deals and transaction work and diligence is the value I bring to the table for him.
And then so it sounds like you can control or constrain, pull Aaron back. Is that true?
Yeah, I think
or are you guys both going as equally as fast?
We can move pretty quick together.
Yeah,
I'd argue that.
I wouldn't say pull back, but he's going to be disciplined to not allow us to overpay or make a bad decision. And I realize when he gives me a number, I'm like, okay, I'm going into negotiation with that number. And if we hit that number, I'll just get up and leave. Like, I'm not going to go over that number because I have full confidence that that's the right number. So it's kind of a combination of the two of us, of him knowing where that number should be, me having the discipline to go. And we don't get emotionally involved in deals. There's nothing we can't live without. There's certain deals you're like, I really want this, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I think that's where we work really well together on that. And that's where you can't have 8 quarterbacks on a team. You got to have a quarterback and a wide receiver and some blockers, and you got to have different people bring different talents to it so that you don't have, if everybody is the same gap in talent, then you have a huge gap in your organization. Right. And I think that we've been able to fill in those gaps.
And we've seen dealership groups go down that way. I can think of 1 or 2 examples where we're like, this isn't going to work. We're watching what these guys are doing, and sure enough, it doesn't work out. You got to be disciplined.
Yeah. All right, we'll go to the wrap-up questions. Just three questions for you guys. So
both have to answer.
Yeah, both have to answer. We talked a lot about M&A. From what I can tell, you didn't go to school for M&A or, you've done M&A along the way. So what's maybe the one thing that they don't teach you in school that you have to have to be successful in kind of going through these acquisition processes?
Well, I'm going to go back to the comment I made earlier, and that is with deals, there's always something that's going to take it one direction or another. And you have to have the tenacity to get it done. So I reflect back at a deal we were doing I was Steelcase, and we were working with a investment banking firm out of Grand Rapids, and this thing was going on forever, like I think a year to put it together. That never happens now today. And going through the deal, I learned that you have to be tenacious to get through it. But my learning from that was at some point, you got to make a decision and move forward. And I watched us not make decisions going through that. Now, again, this is that deal. So today, we don't have a deal that goes on and on and on. It's like we get in, we make it happen. I don't think you can ever learn that just make it happen kind of thing. You have to do that through real life experience.
Yeah, we make decisions really fast, and I think you got to be balanced. If you're too conservative, you're never going to get a deal. And if you're too aggressive, you're going to get a bunch of deals, and then you're going to blow up. And we've seen it go both ways in our industry. So I think you've got to be able to, be kind of in the middle on that, where I think every deal we do, we feel like we're paying probably more than the guy deserves for what he's doing. But with what we're going to do, we look back in a couple of years and go, that ended up being a really good return on investment. So it's probably a win-win for for the guy that sold and probably a win for us too.
What's your favorite overused M&A term?
Overused M&A term?
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be. It doesn't even need to be overused, but just like what's that M&A term? You're just like, man, that's
scale,
There
leverage, scale,
you go.
synergies. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, those like synergy. Anyway, so, you know, what do you mean by that? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think synergies would be the one for
That's
us.
good. And
The one thing that we have done is we haven't jumped into a lot of other businesses. We stick with what we know. So all of our businesses go back to what we're really doing is a customer experience. So every one of ours, that's what we have to own and do better than everybody else, is that retail customer experience.
great. And then last one is, we're both West Michigan based. So what's your maybe favorite off the beaten path restaurant, golf course, activity that most people don't know about in West Michigan that they should check out?
You know, I live on Gull Lake, so I love just the atmosphere out at Gull Lake and being on the lake in the summer and hanging out with the kids and our friends and stuff. Having a lot of fun out there. Favorite restaurant's got to be Trackhouse, because
All right, there you go.
it's our
Yeah.
restaurant
Trackhouse.
over at Motorsport.
And that's a great environment too.
Yeah, we've had a lot of
anytime I bring friends
fun
there,
with
it's
that.
really cool. So, you know, I hang out at the golf course a lot, so I enjoy my time out at Kalamazoo Country Club, and I have a lot of friends out there. So, anytime I bring somebody to town, I bring them out there because I know they can have a good time.
Nice. Good.
Perfect.
Well, thanks, fellas. Really appreciate the time, and have a great rest of your week.
Yeah, this is
Thanks
fun.
for having us.
All right.
Yeah.